You know, we can say the same thing over and over, and finally, at one little moment, people grasp it. They understand it. So I can tell you night after night that all things exist in the human imagination. And I can tell you that man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us and we in him. That the eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. That is the divine body we call Jesus Christ in Scripture. And because of previous training, we may question that or hesitate to take it seriously. I can show you through stories how true this is. I'll tell you. Last Saturday, a friend of mine in from New York, she came in during the week and she was here on Friday. And I invited her to dinner on Saturday with a few other friends of hers out here. She called during the day and asked if she could come early. Could she come at 4 instead of 5 when I invited them? That she had things to tell me, and they would not understand it, and she would feel ill at ease in the presence of others in discussing these things. Now let me go back a little while with this lady. I met her here in this city 20-odd years ago. She was a beautiful young woman, about 30, a model. She had bought a little home for her parents and she was paying off the mortgage. And she said to me then, this is now 20-odd years ago, I've always dreamed of going to Paris. And I really don't have the money. I have enough in the bank to go tourist and live for just 1 week in a modest way. Go to some small little hotel or maybe some little rooming place. And only for a week. I couldn't afford beyond that. And even that seems stupid now, when I think that I'm still paying off on the house. I said, you're asking the wrong person for advice, because I'm not a rational person when it comes to the world. To me, I do not go along with the reasoning mind. I am talking of an entirely different principle. I am speaking of imagination, and imagination to me is Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ to me is God. And there is nothing but God, and all things are possible to God. If you want me to give you a reason for going or not going, do not ask me. You want to go, and you have just enough for a quick one. 1 week in Paris, maximum. Go tourist and live modestly and come back. Well, she didn't tell me what she would do, but she did go. On the second day in Paris, on a blind date, she met a man, 23 years her senior. He was already married 5 times. There was no offspring, but they fell in love. He divorced his 5th, married her, and they were blessed with a child, the image of that man. When I saw pictures of him, he was born in Russia, when I saw pictures of him, it could have been pictures of his little boy. Through the years. Well, the man is very wealthy. She came into a fortune. International business. Factories here in our country, factories in Paris, factories in Puerto Rico, and factories all over. A very, very wealthy man. He went wild over this offspring. Well, as the boy grew, he was then 2.5 years old, and one night I had a vision, and I saw a little boy. He was about 5 years old, handsome beyond measure. And he told me that I was his father. I said, well, if I'm your father, then when are you going to come on earth and be my son? So I am your father. Are you coming down to earth and be my son? He said, yes. I said, when? He said, on the 10th of November. I said, you are? Now this is late September. So I said to my wife the next morning, I said, darling, you know you're going to have a baby on the 10th of November. Well, she said, I really believe all that you teach, but after all, this is ridiculous. I'm not even pregnant. This is late September. I'm going to have a son on the 10th of November. She said, no, that is out. I said, all right, that's what he told me anyway. That night in New York City at my lecture, this lady appeared. Her little boy was 2.5, and she was way out in hair. She looked as though she could have it right then. So I said to her, when do you expect your son? She said, no son. I'm going to have a daughter. Joseph and I, we want a daughter. Don't want any son, we have our son. I said, but when do you expect your child then? She said, oh, the doctor said around early January. I said, should your son be born on the 10th of November, may I tell you his name? His name is Neville Mark, because that's what he told me. Well, on the 10th of November, she had her little boy, and she called him Neville Mark. Well, the family now of 4, the 2 boys, and they grew.